Hey, this is Tiger. Welcome to my stream. Hey AJ, thank you for moderating again. And before we start, please read the disclaimer. We are talking about what we can do in a computer game, not in reality. So leave the real trains and track installations alone and just enjoy playing the game and trying to understand as much of it as we can probably do from the safety of our homes. Today I have the pleasure of diving into the latest DLC, the Niddertalbahn. That was gifted by V for Witty again. So thank you very much for this. It is a great route. It is really, really nice. There are things in it that we have been waiting for a really long time. Steigen Sie nicht mehr ein. Yes. Please stay back. Don't enter the train anymore. No, please steigen Sie noch ein. Please get on the train. Doors are still open. We have not closed the doors yet. You can still hop on the train. Hey CD Radar, thank you for joining again. Nice to see you. I hope you are doing well in the Czech Republic. And yes, you told me it is really good, and it is really good. There are some things like tunnel, for example. They managed to build a tunnel that is actually a tunnel without cracks in between and with the lighting coming in the correct dosage at the end of it. It really looks nice, and obviously there are some glitches like everywhere, but it is as astoundingly good DLC. So thanks again, Witty, again for gifting it for us, for the channel here. And today we want to look at the German semaphore signals that are in the game for the first time. One of the best, if not the best, in certain aspects, the best, I should say. So it was the debut of DSG, the first route for trains in the world, as far as I can understand. And well, the other route builders can actually learn a bit of from that. So Niddertalbahn, and the first thing that we do is we play a scenario. So why a scenario? Because we can see some signals that we cannot see just on the timetable, or at least I have not found them there in this condensed fashion. Yeah, German semaphore signals, the signals that were the signals that existed in Germany for more than 100 years, and that everyone knows who has ever played or saw their grandparents play with model trains. Good morning, driver. Bring this spare train to Stockheim, where you will uncouple one set and make one ready for service. All right, we start actually at the middle of this track. Glimpse into the future is fun. Yeah, that is a fun one. It is a bit surreal. What is the first surreal scenario in Trains in World, I think. Let's enter our train and get ready to depart. This is our train, in case you might have wondered. That Lichtgrau, I think, and mint turquoise and mint grün. That's what the colors are called, if I did not mix up anything. So light gray, peppermint turquoise, and peppermint green. This is what the Deutsche Bundesbahn decided for a nice combination to have on their trains. So before I forget it, I turn on the windscreen wipers, set the reverser to forward. We will talk about this train a bit later. Reverser in, reverser to forward. And then we have to switch on the power. This is the power for the transmission. What transmission? The hydrodynamic transmission that transports the power from the diesel engine to the wheels. So we do not have any traction motors, no electric transmission, but hydrodynamic transmission, I think is the word in English. So with a Föttinger-Prinzip drive. Maybe we'll talk about what that is in depth in a different stream. But that means we have to switch it on, and this power switch is for that. Apart from that, oh, there is the other train coming in. So we will have to wait a bit until the signal clear. Here, behind this hatch, you have the switches for PZB and for the CFA, but only on one end of the train. Because one end of the train is the driving end and the other one is just the cab car end. So I hope we did everything that was necessary to do. We can start. You can see our signal is not a semaphore one, but... oh, maybe I should have released the handbrake. The handbrake is extremely powerful, so... that is like starting your car with a handbrake on. HP2 in the HV system. We will come back to this in the presentation, allowing us to go 40 until we are out of the station area. As soon as we have cleared the last switch, we can go faster. You can see it here. Well, actually we have to go a bit longer. Yes, I will explain every sign that there is on the track, but I will not explain everything tonight. There will be a second stream next week probably dedicated to all the signage that is related with the level crossings. Today I want to focus on the signals and on the speed signs. So not to make it too confusing. And then there are actually a lot of switch indicators. I think as soon as we have cleared this signal here, we are good to accelerate. Now we are still on the 40, and after having passed this rock, I think we are out. Let's see if we hit it. Yes, we did. I'm actually very familiar with these units because they are operated in Czech Republic by Arriva, who brought them from Germany, and they run between my hometown and Prague. Really, that is astounding. Oh, and got me to speeding. Probably, maybe I just caught it. I try to remember, but I don't think that I've ever seen a unit of that kind in real life. I've seen passenger cars with that seating arrangement. That P sign is a whistle board, in case you wondered. It is connected with level crossings, so we will go into this next week. In the rules it says that you have to blow your whistle for approximately 3 seconds. But from what I have seen, trains actually don't whistle for 3 seconds. They whistle significantly shorter. And here is the level crossing. If it is a level crossing with road traffic, public road traffic, you typically have 2 whistle boards. If it is one for pedestrians only or for only private roads, then you usually only have 1 whistle board in front of the level crossing. More to that, to level crossings next week. As long as there is time, I will lose one or two words about it anyway. But you can see the hectometric signs are actually like stones, engraved stones that are sitting next to the track. And this part, I love this part, where you're running through the forest and the line is running next to the track. I find this is extremely well done. It catches the atmosphere and does not look artificial at all. Yeah, those trains, the 628-928. The main purpose of this train is low budget, to have cheap trains so you can have a lot of them running on all the secondary lines like this one. But as it turned out, they are extremely reliable, those trains. And hard to kill. Here you can see an isolated Formsignale, distance signal board. I had to acknowledge it, and we got 1000 Hertz monitoring. Sometimes we don't get a distance signal, we just get the distance signal board, so that we know in about 1000 meters there will be a main signal, like this one. This is the first semaphore that we see actually showing a clear. You can see the blade on top of it is lifted in a 45 degrees angle. The lower blade is pointing upwards. That is a clear. This flashing signal is connected with a level crossing. As long as it is flashing, it is safe to pass the level crossing. More about that. And, well, now we're going across the switch. Nobody flagged us down to 40. Maybe they should have done. This switch is a bit shaky to navigate with 60, I think. But we did not get an HP2 signal, but a clear one, like this one here on the exit. So we are good to go through the switch with 60. And there was no limit. Maybe this is just in the scenario. But hey, this is the end of shunt sign. If you are only a shunting service and don't have a track warrant, you may not pass this sign. On the left side, from behind, a distance signal, semaphore distance signal. And another whistle board again. Again, 2 times whistling in front of this level crossing, passing the level crossing. Because we are in this scenario, we don't have to stop at those stations here. So we just pass them. And if I have to explain every single sign, then maybe I will have to make a special stream for the shunting signals and the switch indicators. Because from what I have seen, there are at least 3 different types of switch indicators. And they all work. That is great. They all work. It's not like on most DLCs that you look at the switch indicator showing you that you are going straight ahead, and as soon as you're getting closer, It changes? No. And look at this this road on the left. How fast those cars are going. It really looks real. And just to emphasize this, there are actually inscriptions on the sign. Not just dummy inscriptions, but the names of the towns ahead. Again, an isolated NE2 distance signal board. Again, 1000 Hz monitoring. If you're interested in why we are getting 1000 Hz here, we have a video on the channel that deals with Befehl 40 system in PZB special Befehl 40, and there we talk about isolated boards for Signaltafeln. Now we have to slow down because we are getting an HP2 before entering Altenstadt. Here again the signal for the level crossing. If it is flashing, all is good. You technically do not need to acknowledge them, but it is not a bad thing to get used to acknowledge those signals, because if they are not flashing, you will have to acknowledge them. Otherwise you will get a Zwangsbremsung. And we will talk about this next week. It can happen. There is a 1% chance that it does not flash, and then you have to stop in front of the level crossing. That is ingenious. That is the first random event. So, we are entering the station with HP2, limited to 40. There's a switch indicator telling us we go straight ahead. Next switch indicator telling us we are diverging to the right. Those semaphores that you can see on the left, they don't belong to us, they belong to the other direction. But now we can see we are approaching a red light. That is a stop signal, without having been warned before. But we can do that. Yes, and we actually have to wait here for a minute, and this gives us the opportunity to have a closer look on those semaphore signals. Those are the typical main semaphore signals. Two blades on top of each other. The top one is the one that can show clear, then it is lifted in a 45-degree angle, or stop, then it is positioned like this in a horizontal way, and the other one is the signal that can be used for the HP2 for the Langsamfahrt, for the limit to 40. Then both blades are lifted in an angle of 45 degrees, and you can see those lenses here, and those things with a tank underneath are the lamps, and when the blades move, then also those filters move and display a red or a green light. Why they are not displaying a green light here, can't tell. Lamp is off. If the lamp is broken, you can actually lower them, and they have it here. Look at this. You can actually crank this crank and get the lamp down. You cannot repair it, unfortunately, but you can get them down. Isn't that nice? That is a nice touch, in my opinion. Signal is cleared. Well, no, we got the update. We are kept here because the train is entering the station. See, the radar says Arriva has refurbished the trains, and they are still very comfortable even after so many years in operation. That's nice to hear. Maybe I should travel to the Czech Republic and ride on one of these trains then. You've seen the signal have cleared, both lifted 45 degrees. That is green over yellow if the lamps are on. Well, the lamps are down, so they cannot display any color, but that means we can proceed with a limit of 40. Next stop is already in Stockheim. That is the terminus for this DLC. Alright. I think we are out of the station area. Across the switch we can accelerate to 60. Yeah. Sure. The signals are, if they have a limit, are always valid for the next Weichenbereich, the next set of interlockings. And there it depends if you are passing an entry signal, entering a station, then the interlockings are until the exit signal, so typically cover the whole station area. If it is an exit signal, then the ensuing interlockings are actually the switches that are positioned after the exit signal. That is a bit simplified, the rule for the ensuing Weichenbereich. Obviously there are more complicated cases, but those two cases actually help you a lot. You can even climb on tree in one station. Yes, I have seen that on the forums. I didn't try to do it, but I've seen the forum entry, right? Do you remember what station it was? An interesting fact about those trains, what I have read, is that they were originally designed as a two-car DMU with two powered cars, so with an engine on both cars. But with the 628.2 variant, and even before already, they dropped the second engine, and so only one car has an engine, and this engine only powers one bogie, not the first bogie that we are sitting on more or less, but the one on the other end of our car that we are sitting in. Can see if you look at the number in front of, or written on the front, if it is 628, then you are sitting in the car that has the engine. If you're sitting in a 928, then you're sitting in the cab car, the car that does not have an engine, that only acts as a cab car and drives the engine on the other end of the train. I think Lindheim. Alright. Maybe we stop in Lindheim and try to climb on a tree later. And hell yeah! You can actually see all those installations that are on the bogie that is powered. You can see the engine, you can see the driving shaft, you can see the casing for the hydrodynamic gearbox or whatever you might call this thing. It is modeled. What is a great thing in my opinion. But before we get to Stockheim, I would like to present you my presentation. So, German signaling, HV semaphore signals. We have had already a stream about the HV light signals, and surprise, surprise, the signaling system is the same. The semaphore signals look obviously a bit different, but it is still the same HV signaling system that we know from, like, for example, Main-Spessart-Bahn. And we also have some HV light signals here in this Niddertalbahn DLC, so it is a good thing that we can just recap the HV system, and then we reverse engineer the semaphore signals out of the light signals for the HV signals. So what was it like? We had obviously our green signal, that was called the HP1 signal. On a main signal, one green light allows you to proceed with maximum authorized speed. And we had those mast signs so that we can distinguish a main signal from a distant signal, for example, and it also conveys some information what you are supposed to do in case of the signal being distorted or broken or whatever. So this is the typical mast sign that you can see on a main signal, telling you it is a main signal. The opposite of it, the stop signal, HPO, two red lights, or just one red light, but most of the time two red lights in the HV system tells you to stop. Then we have learned that most of the time every main signal is preceded by a distant signal, and those distant signals have those diagonally aligned lights. Green over green, ascending diagonally, is the VR1, that is the signal that announces the HP1, so the number usually corresponds. If you pass this as a driver, you can expect that the next signal will be green. And that you know that you're passing a distant signal, you have those distant signal boards, those two mirrored V's that look like an X from, if you don't know that it is a V and mirrored to the bottom, so you know that. And we have already seen that this NE2 sign, as it is called, can also be isolated and then represents the distant signal, tells you, well, we just cut short of the distant signal, but you know, in the braking distance there will be a main signal. And we also know from this system that typically the distance between the distant signal and the main signal on primary railways, on primary lines, is 1 kilometer. This is the regular braking distance, the distant signal distance, Vorsignalabstand, Regelbremsweg. And then we have a very complicated system in Germany that allows every train only to go so fast that it is safeguarded, that it can stop within this distance. So in case the train gets warned, or its driver gets warned by a distant signal that there is a stop signal ahead, then it must be safeguarded that the train can be brought to a standstill within this distance. We have talked about it. The VR1 signal precedes the HP1 signal. The VR0 signal, distant signal, precedes the HP1 main signal. It is not red because we don't want drivers to pass red signals, but to stop in front of them unless they are totally sure that they can pass them. So the warning signal is yellow. Again, the same arrangement, diagonally ascending, yellow over yellow. 0, 0, 1, 1. You pass this signal, you know the next one will be clear. You pass this signal, the next one will be red. So you can start slowing down. Again, regular braking distance. Then we know that those distance signals can be repeated. So in case that there are bends or other obstacles that prevent you from getting a clear view on the main signal, so the distance signal can be repeated. For the driver not to mistake the repeater for a full-blown distance signal, the repeaters always have this white dot on top of them in the top left corner. And this is something that, for example, on Bremen-Oldenburg is missing, and from what I've heard on the Linke Rheinstrecke as well, what is a new glitch that I have not seen before. HV distance signal repeater always have this white light in the top left corner on, regardless of the aspect that they are displaying. And not only this light can tell you that it is a distant signal repeater, because sometimes the distant signal can have this light as well if it is closer than 95% of the regular braking distance. The distant signal repeater won't have a distant signal board. So if you see this board, you know this is a full-blown distance signal. That is the most basic stuff. Go and stop. Progression to stop. And speed signaling wise, the only aspect that we have in the HV system for aspects with lights is this green over yellow HP2 main signal. You might not pass this signal faster than with 40 kilometers unless it is indicated otherwise. In the most basic system we cannot indicate it otherwise. We can only write it into the timetable. Then it might allow you to go faster or slower. The distance signal that corresponds with that is obviously HP2 VR2 0 0 1 1 2 2. And here you can see that it is a full-blown distance signal because it has the NA2 board, and because it is closer than 95% of the regular braking distance, it also has this white light. So this white light on the top left in the HV system just tells you that the signal that you are seeing is closer than 95% of the regular braking distance. It does not tell you whether it is a repeater or it is a distance signal. For that you have to look for the NE2 board. If it is existing, then it is a full-blown distance signal. If it is non-existing, then it is a repeater. Indicated otherwise, you can show numerals in the modern HV system with a ZS3, a ZS3 additional signal, and with a ZS3 you can warn the driver about the speed limit that is incoming. So the white on black number tells you this is the speed that you are allowed to go here, and the yellow on black tells you this is the speed limit that you have to expect that is incoming. That is repetition recap for the HV signaling system. Also repetition is that the distance signal typically is preceded by those signs: the Formsignale, the distant signal announcement boards, and they work after the principle the more strikes, the more or the further away from the distant signal. So one strike is the last one, and the last one is in the distance of 100 meters in front of the distant signal, and the others have always 75 meters approximately among them. And there can actually be up to 5 strikes. So you can start with 5 strikes, 4, 3, 2, 1. Those signs can be more like a square, don't necessarily need to be that rectangular. But the principle is clear. And if you have a situation where the distance signal is closer than 95% of the regular braking distance to the main signal, then you already get warned about this by this triangle standing on its tip on the first distance signal announcement board, so that you can actually slow down and prepare your train for the shorter braking distance here. That corresponds. Alright, recap for the HV system. You can see a lot of that, or you will see a lot of that you can use for the semaphore signals, because the semaphore signals are not a different signaling system, they are just different signals within the same signaling system. But before we get to the semaphores, one addition. We have learned this in our PZB special video about the Befehl 40. Program. If a dispatcher wants to allow you to pass a red signal, but just for shunting purposes, especially if you are driving a locomotive that is supposed to be coupled to a train, so a calling on procedure, then the dispatcher can set this SH1 signal that allows for shunting services only to pass the red signal, and then typically one of the red lights will go dark and only one will remain, and as a shunting service you can pass that. We have seen that in the Electrolog stream in Bremen-Oldenburg, that sometimes it was that the red light went dark and sometimes it didn't. I put this here on this diagram because we have a semaphore equivalent to that too, and it is in the Niddertalbahn and working. So now let's reverse engineer this to semaphore signals. The first thing what we do is we get rid of the repeaters. There are no distinct semaphore signal repeaters described in the rules. That's why I'm not talking about them. What we also cannot do with semaphore signals is use those ZS3 and ZS3V signs, at least to my knowledge, and at least they are not in the Niddertalbahn. So those numeral signals we cut out also. But what is left all of this works with the semaphore signals just as well. Let's start with the HP O signal, the rev one, that orders you to stop. What does it look like as a semaphore signal? It looks like this. Again, a main signal. It has the same mast sign, but to be fair, typically the whole mast is painted in those colors: white, red, white, red. And then on top you have one or two blades. If you have only one blade, then it is always representing the upper blade. If it has two blades and the signal is supposed to display a stop, then the second blade will be pointing upwards, so you can't actually see it because it is aligned with the mast, and the upper blade will be in a horizontal fashion, allowing you not to proceed. And at night it will display a red. Why only at night? Why the bother of having two different versions for night and day? Easily explained, because when those signals were invented and introduced more than 100 years ago, they did not have lamps that were bright enough so you could see them during day. This is why they had to distinguish between day and night conditions. Otherwise you could have just used the red light. And since we have those powerful lamps that can be seen during day, we could get rid of those semaphore blades and only use the light. Same thing works with the main signal that allows you to go. Oh, probably let's talk about the SH1 signal, the one that allows you to call on. The semaphore variant of that looks like this. Not two lights, but exactly this. It looks like a banner repeater in the UK system, but it is not. It is actually the version of the SH1 signal in semaphore. So if you encounter a semaphore stop signal like this one, and on its mast you see this little signal here with its black bar not aligned horizontally but in a 45 degrees angle ascending, then you know you can pass this signal as a shunting service, just like you are allowed to pass the red signal with the SH1 with the two diagonally ascending white lights. Yeah, and never forget, in this case, because you're passing a red signal with permission, you have to push and hold down your Befehl 40 taste if your PZB is activated, what I always assume, because it is in most countries a punishable crime to drive a train without the safety systems on. Alright, HP1, main signal, clear signal. We have talked about this, it looks like this. The second blade, just as on the HP0 signal, but the upper blade raised in a 45 degree. And this is the corresponding green signal. At night you will get a green and you have this raised blade. Same name, same meaning, same indication. HP2, for that we need the second blade. We have the HP1 with a lifted one on top, and we lift the other one as well. And then we get a green over a yellow light, just like we had it on the light signal. But those are the corresponding blade arrangements for it. So you can see the lower blade can only be either aligned with the mast pointing upwards or pointing in a 45 degrees fashion. The upper blade can only be raised in a 45 degrees fashion or in a horizontal fashion. This is what they can do. You won't find the upper blade pointing upwards. You won't find the second blade be in a horizontal fashion. Those three aspects is all what those semaphore signals can display according to the valid rule book. And you can see the night lights, the light aspects connected with it are exactly what we had in this, the HP light signal system. The distance signal, on the other hand, they look weird. They look like this. You have a disc on top, a quite massive disc, and you have an arrow underneath. And in this alignment, if you can see the disc and the arrow pointing straight to the ground, then you know you are approaching a red signal. This is the VR1 distant signal. And the distant signal board is either attached to the mast, or because the mast has already so much attached to it, it can be just put up next to the distance signal. Sometimes this arrow can be on top of the disc if they are mounted on a bridge, but this is the typical arrangement: disc, arrow underneath. And also the system has lights. They are next to the arrow. And no wonder, in an arrangement like this, you will see ascending yellow over yellow, just as we had it on the light signals. And now we can just progress and translate the distance signal that announces an HP1 main signal. It looks like this. You can't see the disc. The arrow is still pointing downwards, and the lights that are shown at night are the green ascending to green. Same as in the light signal system. And now you know what the VR2 night signal looks like, but you don't know what the day signal looks like. It looks like this. You see the disc, but the arrow is not pointing downwards, but in a 45 degrees fashion to the right. And the lights that you will see with it, those you already know. Yellow ascending to green, and this announces an HP2. So even though those signals look a bit weird, and you can imagine that those signal arrangements can display so many more different aspects, only those combinations are used. There is, for example, on the distance signals, no aspect where you can't see the disc and the arrow is pointing in a 45-degree fashion. Does not exist, this aspect. Yeah. So the arrow, if it is not aligned with the mast, you always see the disc with it, and then you know you are approaching an HP2 signal. Those distance signal announcement boards, they actually exist also with the semaphore signals, but not on secondary lines. This is why we don't see them a lot in the Niddertalbahn. We only see them when we are approaching the terminuses and the station in the middle, where we are crossing a more important line. Then we get those distance signal boards preceding the HP light signals that are there. Yeah, and if we have a situation like this where the distance signal is closer to the main signal, and more than 95% of the regular braking distance closer, so you will have this triangle, this white triangle that you know from the first distance signal announcement board, sitting on the distant signal board, the NO2 sign, because obviously this signal does not have a white light. This is why it has the white triangle. That's it. That's all for the semaphore signals. If you know the rules concerning the HV light signal system, then it should not be a problem to use the semaphore signals. Even though the distance signal looks really, really weird in my opinion. I have no idea who invented this and who came up with this idea with disc and the arrow. Well, it is prominent enough if you see the disc and you get warned that you have to use your brakes. CD radar, the SH01 is used in Prague Metro and means track closed. It is usually on the depot gate. Yes, totally the same with us. The SH0 would be in the semaphore version like this, with the bar in the middle, not arranged in a 45 degrees version, but horizontally, blocking the track. And the corresponding light signal would be one red light instead of the two white lights. And you see the SH0 in the Niddertalbahn a lot, blocking everything. Sometimes it is mounted on buffer blocks, so that you don't get the idea of passing a buffer block with a movement authority of 40 kilometers, like on the Luzern-Sursee when we had it. No, then you are allowed to pass the buffer block not with no speed at all. You have to stop in front of it, what makes a lot of sense in my opinion. Well, that's for that. The speed signage will come after we have finished our driving. Remember, we were on our way to the terminus in Stockheim, and before we enter Stockheim we will see one of those weird distance signals with a disc on, that sign with diamonds. It is called a rhomboid board, a Rautentafel, and it announces one of those flashing signals like this here, that are connected with level crossings. I will talk about those a bit more in depth on the next stream. But the typical progression for level crossings that have at least those flashing red lights, this technical measures to secure them, then the typical progression will be this board with the diamonds or rhomboids, Rautentafel. After that, the flashing one, BU1, Überwachungssignal, and here you can see the distant signal showing you have to expect an HP2 reduction to 40. Obviously you have to acknowledge it, just like in the HV light signaling system. And be prepared to be down to 40 at the next main signal, and the next main signal is at the end of this straight part of the track. So we can slow down a bit. So far we cannot see it, the main signal, but soon enough it will get visible. Here it is, we can already see the lights, the green over yellow. We cannot really see the blades so well because the tree is behind it, but soon enough we will see the blades as well. But that's it, either you see the lights or you see the blades. Both blades raised, 45 degrees, limit to 40, HP2. How's it going, Cartel 99 Gaming? We are having a lot of fun with the old German semaphore signals. By the way, I love this soccer field here. It has so much weed growing on it. You can hardly see your opponent. Nice to have you chatting on the stream. So now we're getting already into the station. Here on the right you can see, for example, an SH0 signal. Switch indicator telling us we are going to the right. Yeah, so do we. Next switch indicator telling we are going straight ahead. And then this weird switch indicator on the bottom telling us we're going to the left on an X style. Switch. Those boxes with the two white lights horizontally are the hindsight, the rear end of the SH0, SH1 signals. So not important for us at the moment. And we're bringing our train to a stop. Come give me those remaining meters. The sweet spot is a bit for stopping is more at 3 meters than 2. Now I was a bit too far. Now we need to uncouple the rear unit to leave it here. Afterwards we will bring this unit to the platform. Alright. Then we uncouple it. Apply some brakes. Maybe the holding brake here, that the train does not run away. Reverse it to off. Lock the door that nobody can nick the train. And then we have to walk back a bit. Can I close this? Don't stumble over those wires here. And now, what I wanted to show. We are in the car with the engine, and you can see the tank for the engine here. And here in this part there is the actual diesel engine that provides all the power. And underneath here you can see the driving shaft that is coming out of the diesel engine and powering this bogie here. Apparently I cannot go deeper, should have used the external camera. If you use the external camera you can see, yeah, a bit you can see it here. Look, there are actually all those contraptions, the casings for the hydrodynamic drive. That is the transmission for the connection between the diesel engine and the wheels. You can see the magnetic track brake here. You can see the balloon for the air suspension that is supposed to get all the vibrations out of the coaches. It is nicely modeled, really nicely. This is the installation probably for the wheel slip protection system. This here might be something connected with the automatic load change. Well, you can see the other end, the other car on our consist does not have this engine stuff underneath. It is only a driving trailer. It has those tanks for the pressurized air, for the air brakes and for the door closing system, typically. Yeah, the thing with... oh no, I cannot uncouple here. That is the short coupled end. I should stop crouching, then I'm faster. So, can I disconnect this here? I don't actually know how you would do this with uncoupling to DMUs, but I at least applied some brakes before doing it. There was some discussion in my comments on the Electrolog video about what we should actually do when uncoupling cars. Since it is a full-blown DMU, not only cars, I think it is okay. Well, typically you would open the air brake, no, the brake pipe, that's the name, the brake pipe on the cars after uncoupling it for 3 seconds and let out the air. Then it should be safe. But this is not a thing that we can do in the simulation, obviously. Now get our train to the shunting head. And this actually gives us the opportunity to see... Oh, same again. Never forget the parking brake. You can actually get your powered bogie What am I doing? Oh, I should have put the reverser to forward. Explaining too much always ruins the impression that I know what I'm doing. Brakes released. Parking brake released. Now it should work. And it works. Thank you very much. I don't know yet if the magnetic brake and brake test switches do something. I think typically those brake test switches disconnect stuff so that the brakes don't actually work. But before we talk more about this, look at this. Stop signal, SH1, we are allowed to pass, pressing the Befehl 40, the override key, and as soon as the sound goes silent, we can let go of the key again, and then we don't get a Zwangsbremsung. Yeah, here are the switches for brake test and magnetic brake. Those brake test switches are typically if you want to disconnect your brake control equipment from the actual brake system to see if the equalizing reservoir or similar thingies actually work. Maybe I will find out until next week. So let's change ends here and bring the train into the station. Okay. When changing ends, we cannot apply the brakes fully. We typically set them to off so that we can cut them out and remove the key. We turn off the power for the hydrodynamic drive. We set the reverser obviously to 0, then we need to take the reverser handle with us because we need it on the other end. Then what we need to do without the game telling us is switch the signal lights to tail lights because this will be the tail end now. Turn off the wipers if we have turned them on. Train lights, well, we will light them from the other end. Instrument lights we don't need here. And then an important thing, at least at the time being, you don't have those valves for PZB and CIFA on the other end of the train. You only can turn them on here. But from what I've seen, it is a bit glitchy. If you just leave them on and drive the train from the other end, you don't hear the CIFA announcements, but it will stop you anyway because the announcement will be on this end. And you won't hear anything and you won't see it on your indicator, so I suggest turning it off here before you switch to the other end. And on the other end, just use, for the time being at least, the keyboard shorts to activate the safety systems again. Can see here the same hatch is not a hatch, it is just a ball panel. Insert the reverser, reverser to forward, turn on the power for the hydrodynamic drive, turn on the lights, not the cab lights, we don't need that, train lights, instrument lights. I always like to put the dimmer to 100%. Not taillights, but headlights for the lights on the top of the tip of the train. Brake key, cut in, release, and then we should be able to go. But before we do that, shift, control, and return to turn on CIFA and PZB. And you can see it works. PZB starting program, because we switched ends, we cannot go faster than 40, but this does not hurt us a lot. Release the train to get the train moving. Oh, okay. Sometimes you have to toggle around the brake lever between off and release if the scenario does not update. On the left is our second train that we just uncoupled and left there. Switch indicator telling us we're going to the right. Switch indicator telling us we're coming in from the reverse position. Switch indicator telling us switch is straight. Alright, this is a scenario for today, I think. It should be. This concludes this small shift. Thank you for bringing this train over. I chose this scenario because it had the stop at the red light in Altenburg, I think is the name. And it has, or it had, the SH1 in connection with the HP0 signal. Never forget to press the Befehl 40 if you're passing a signal of that kind. What I wanted to do next is just start one service to show you the speed signal boards to the train, choose the route, Niddertalbahn timetable, the 6:28, and then it is the 10:20, starting from Bad Vilbel, running towards Stockheim. So this is the other end of the DLC of the route. Bad Vilbel is the terminus, and we would run on this service all the way down to Stockheim, but we won't do that. Timetable mode now. We know what we have to do. Reverser to forward, power on, open the doors, headlights, train lights if you want, instrument lights if you want to 100%, if you wanted to do it like I do it. Brake key, brakes cut in, parking brake maybe, release, on running, and then are we, on what end are we? We are a driving trailer, so I will activate CIFA and PCB with Shift, Control and Turn keyboard shorts. The magnetic brake, we would have to try, as far as I know, the magnetic track brake is only used for emergency brake applications on this train, as on many others. And we would have to find a way to test this, turn it on and then yank in the brakes to emergency and find out if there is a difference. Obviously it is possible that the brake is simulated with its effect, but it is not animated, or the other way around. So even if you get your external camera 3, for example, next to the bogies with the track brake, this one does not have one, so obviously only the powered one has the magnetic track brake. No, both. One of the two bogies has it. This is not the magnetic track brake, this was a receptacle for the PCB, I think. Yeah, we would have to do this, I guess, to find out. This time I don't forget the handbrake. I don't know how you guys do it. I think notching up quite quickly is important if you want to stay on the timetable. HP2 signal, light signal variant, limiting us to 40 on passing the signal, valid until we are out of the ensuing Weichenbereich, the interlockings. It is an exit signal, so the Weichenbereich should end after the last switch. And we are already out in the open in the 60. Yeah, the automatic mirrors. This sign, those diamonds, blue and white, prohibit vehicles that have pantographs to proceed with pantograph up. There are a couple of those blue and white signs, typically in a diamond-shaped form. In a diamond shape, I think is enough. And they are all connected with the main circuit breaker and the pantograph. Some tell you to lift it, some tell you to lower it, turn it on, turn it off. And this one that we just saw just prohibits you to proceed if you have a pantograph up. Here's the switch for the automatic mirrors. Somewhere here, automatic folded in. Folded out. You can see they are actually moving, but they don't reflect. Mirrors never reflect on Train Sim World. I don't know exactly why. Also, this part of the track is very, very nice. Before we get to Gronau, we are passing one level crossing. That is a bit of a dangerous point, and for that we get a special speed reduction with a quite unique signage for that. We are limited to 30 there, after being allowed to go 60 before that. and we will use this to discuss this kind of speed signaling. But first, let's see it in action. Need a bit more throttle since we are driving uphill. Now, I think we're closing in. Here's the Rhomboid board with the diamonds announcing this BU signal. That one. Flashing. Flashing is okay, we don't need to stop. But this is actually a different level crossing. It's not the one that we're talking about. There are two close by. But now it is starting. Here you can see this 3 sign in the triangle, indicating that we have to slow down to 30. In between we have a whistle board with the P, a white BU 3.8 for this level crossing, and then a sign that we have not seen in Train Sim World so far. Black 3 on white with a black border, and underneath a yellow sign with a black A on it. In the game here, this is where the 30 reduction starts. And then you get a sign with an E. That is where the 30 reduction ends, as soon as the whole train has passed it. Since we have to stop in Gronau, it is not so important for us that it ends. And this signage is unique. I have no idea if this is prototypical. Oh, I should stop. Or not. Anyway, this is the furthest that this service goes here tonight, because we want to look at the speed signaling, the speed signage here. For that, again, recap of the speed boards that we already know. The typical speed limit boards on the primary lines look like this. We all know that, have passed several hundreds of them while driving on German lines. The black number on the white rectangular board tells you this is the spot where a reduction in speed limit starts, and the limit is the number times 10. So this is where a 60 reduction or limit starts. It can be an increase or a decrease. At this point, as soon as the tip of the train passes the sign, you have to be at 60 and not more. LF7 is the name of this sign. And if it is a reduction, then this sign is preceded by this sign. Black numeral on white triangle, on yellow triangle with a small white border and then a big black border. Black numeral on yellow, white, black. This is the LF6 sign. We have seen also several hundreds of those. They precede a reduction in speed limit and are followed by the LF7 that tells us where this speed limit begins. And this is valid until you get a new limit, be it a new LF7 sign or something else. This is the bread and butter stuff. Then we have learned that those signs, the ZS3 and ZS3V, that are typically shown together with a distance signal and a main signal, they can also stand alone. Then they look like this. Inverted versions of those above. It is a white numeral on a black triangle with a white border. Respectively, a yellow numeral on a black triangle with a yellow border. The principle is the same. The yellow sign warns you that there is a reduction, and the black and white sign tells you that the reduction starts here. The difference is that those inverted signs be it that they are mounted to signals, be it that they are standing alone, are not valid until you get a new limit, but they are only valid in the ensuing Weichenbereich throughout the interlockings. We have talked about this earlier in the stream. If it is an entry signal for a station, then it is typically the whole station. If it is an exit signal, then this interlocking area is over as soon as your train has cleared the last switch and are out on the open track. Simplified enough. So those two rules actually help you with that. That is what we know so far. And now what is new? What we also know is that if it is mounted to a signal, they don't need to be in a triangle. They can just be in a black box. And also without a signal this works. The important thing is the white numeral on black or the yellow numeral on black. What is, another thing, those arrows that we have talked about. There are two different kind of arrows that can be mounted on top of those boards. The white one that looks just like a stretched triangle indicates to what track this sign belongs, to the track to the right, like here, and if it is the other way around, the track to the left. In case there can be confusion, this sign just tells you to what track the sign belongs. And this yellow arrow that looks like this tells you that you are warned about an incoming speed limit that is not on the line straight ahead, but on the line that is diverging to the right. Obviously, if you get this sign in front of a junction, you would not know if you have to expect a limit if you are going straight ahead or if you are diverging. So this arrow helps you so that you know this only is valid if you are diverging, and if you are straight ahead, then you don't need to bother. Now what is new in this DLC here? This sign, black numeral on white triangle with a black border. It is called an LF4. If you read the directive here on the left margin, you can read up all the stuff that I'm telling you in the Richtlinie 301 in the modules 0501 or 301, and there you find all those aspects, all those signs and the names. So this is an LF4. So it is from the same family as those above here, LF6, LF7, LF4. And those only occur on secondary lines, like our Niddertalbahn here, not on main lines. And what do? They announce about they announce an incoming speed limit. And if you read the rules, then this LF4 sign should be succeeded by an A sign. A black A on a white rectangular sign. LF5 it is called. And then you know at this point it starts. It is not necessary that this sign is there. The rules say if it is clear anyway when the speed limit starts, then you don't necessarily need this A sign. But in general, you can use this sign to tell the driver at what point this announced limit actually starts. And then you can already see the number 4, 5, and then comes 6 and 7. There is no specified resume sign, no end sign for this kind of speed limit in the rules. So what you can do anyway is use the LF7, because then a new limit starts. If it is the old one, maybe it is. From some videos from this specific level crossing that we just passed in the game, from nowadays the DLC is set back in the 19th, so it's not necessarily the same there. Nowadays the trains go a bit faster. They don't go 60 but 80 at this point. And you can see after this level crossing there is an LF7 sign with an 8. I wasn't able to figure out what is in front of the level crossing, so what signage is used to order the speed limit of 30 there. But this, in my opinion, should be a valid progression. What does the game do? Yeah, of course, this is where the speed limit is valid, from the A sign Anfang, start, to the new sign that tells you what speed is applicable from this point on. I have taken some screenshots from the game. This is not the direction that we came in, but the other way around. We are standing on the platform of Gronau here and looking back to Bad Vilbel. And what we can see, the first sign that we can get here is a black 3 on yellow with a white border, and then it is not quite clear. Is this a black border or is it just the end of the sign? I should say it looks like a black border, although it is a bit thin. After that, quite close after that actually, we get the black 3 on white ground with this time a significant black border, and at the same mast an A, but not an A on a white sign, but on a yellow sign. Next to it, the diamond sign, the rhomboid sign, that is for the next level crossing. This is not part of this succession. And then after that, we get an E sign. Where does this signage come in now? So what do we have in the game? We have here, well, I think since it has a black border, it is a very common LF6 sign that we have for other reductions in speed limit as well. So if this is a black border, then it is an LF6 sign. Where the speed limit actually starts, like here, we get this sign, the LF4. That is actually an announcing sign, but we get it at the mast where it starts. And we have it with an A on a yellow plate, probably with a white border. It doesn't really have a white border from what you can see here, but the only sign in the rules is an A on yellow with a white border. And this is an LF2 sign. You can see still the same family. The missing 1, 2, 3 in front of the LF4. This is the A sign, that is the LF2 sign. But this is, according to the rules, a temporary speed limit. Like if you have a construction site or whatever, or a point of danger, then you can use temporary speed limits, temporary speed restrictions. And this A on yellow, LF2, is a sign that tells you where a temporary speed limit starts, according to the rules. Not a permanent one, like it is obviously used here in the game. Also, the E sign that we see here in the game is called an LF3 sign according to the rules, and it is also connected with temporary speed limits only. It tells you where the temporary speed limit ends. And then we have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We need LF1 as well, and the LF1 looks like this. It is a black numeral on yellow with a white border and no black border around. This is why I was talking so much about, is this a black border or not? If it is not a black border, then it is an LF1 sign. And an LF1 sign warns you about an incoming temporary speed limit. So LF1, LF2, LF3, those three are the succession that are used for temporary speed limits only, not permanent ones, temporary ones. While as this LF4 is used on secondary lines to announce a speed limit that is incoming, and the start of the speed limit should be signed by the LF6, and the end of this speed limit should be signed by an LF7, I think, if you sign it at all. What we have here in the game is a bit of a mix-up of all this. I have no means of knowing if this is genuine, if this is prototypical, if they actually had this kind of signage in the 90s at this point. I could not find any reference to the usage of those signs in that succession in any version of the rules. Those parts of the Directive 301, they are more or less referring the Eisenbahnsignalordnung, the railway signal, well, it's almost a secondary form of law, right? The Eisenbahnsignalordnung from 1945. They also they already have these aspects for those signs, and already there LF1, LF2, LF3, A on yellow, black 3 on yellow with no black border. This is temporary speed limit stuff. So I guess what they should have done instead of this sign here, the one with the black on white with the big black border, instead of this combined sign here, just an A on white at the point where it starts, and instead of the E sign, just a regular LF7 sign. But again, if you know better, please let me know in the comments. Would be extremely interesting to know. So I hope this was not too confusing, but I thought it was worth looking into it. And we have used the LF6 and the LF7 so much and everywhere, and now we know what LF1 to LF5 actually do. Yeah, here we can see it all next to each other, the whole family of speed limit boards. What we can do in the game now, in the stream now, we have 127 that actually allows us to have a look at a full-blown VR0 signal that announces a black signal. And for that, I just jump into a save game of another scenario, the hugging tree scenario. Hugging trees. So, we are on our way to Altenstadt in this scenario. Again, it is raining. They put there what they had in storage. Yeah, maybe they just put there what they always wanted to use. Well, really, maybe it is just exactly what was there in the 90s. And for some reason, it was correct to use those signs in that way. Maybe. You never know. Reality is always much more complicated. Oh, I saw my marker was... So... something went wrong with the safety systems, I'm afraid. Right, it's always a gamble with a safe game. Okay. That was the gamble of the safe game, turning a PZB on while running. Can always run in a result into a penalty brake, but no problem. Just fill the brake pipe again, and then we can go. We passed an isolated Formsignale. I tried to acknowledge it, realized that PZB wasn't working. I turned it off, I turned it on again, and then all of a sudden we had the 1000 Hertz influencing or monitoring running, and we got a penalty brake from it. The nice thing about the scenarios here is that they do not have predefined arrival times most of the time. What is great. Sometimes in scenarios it is a bit annoying if you do stuff because they tell you to do stuff and then you drive your train into the station and realize that you should have arrived there 20 minutes ago. I do not need to acknowledge this because it was the main signal telling us to not go faster than 40. But acknowledging it did not hurt either. We have to stop in Altenstadt because they are telling us to. This time it is raining in the scenario. In Boston it is always snowing. In Hesse it is always raining. And if you read the chat, then you miss your stop, but this is totally irrelevant because I'm just playing this safe game to show you this VR0 distance signal in the Semaphore version. The boarding times in the scenarios are so much longer than in the timetable mode. And nobody wants to board anyway. This H sign is for where you have to stop. It's the stop marker. Everybody knows that. This is this BU1, BU0 signal that tells you whether the level crossing is secured or not. If it is flashing, then the level crossing is secured. And you can see here from this part, it is a repeater actually, so it is the second signal in a line. More about that next week. And there was something that I could use? No, I can't. Lock our doors. Why did we go to the opposite? I don't know why we did that. It is a good question. Again, limited to 40, but unlike the last signal that we passed of that kind, it is not an entry signal, but it is an exit signal, meaning as soon as the train has cleared the last switch, we can accelerate to line speed of 60. At least this is my understanding. So I just go for it, and yeah, it works out. And now we are approaching Höchst. We still get to Höchst in this scenario. Yes, and then after Höchst there will be this VR0 signal. Whistleboard. Second whistleboard. Level crossing. Also, those long distance shots, they look extremely realistic. So, long distance shots and the rather tense scenery when you're going through the forest. That is pristine. The scenery work on this DLC is really pristine. Oh, but I'm speeding. Anyway. So this is an interesting thing. A whistle board, but we have to stop after the whistle board. Does it make sense to blow your whistle and warn people at the level crossing and then stop the train and wait there for 2 minutes? No, it does not make sense. Also next week, in the next stream, I can tell you what the rules provide for that situation. It is for passing trains, exactly. But there is in the rules an additional sign that you can put on top of this first whistle board, and that tells you that it is only for passing trains, for trains that don't stop at the stopping point right after the whistle board. It's just a little white rectangular sign with 2 black stripes on the left and the right. In the presentation next week, I will show you. And now, drum rolls, the VR0 distance signal in the Semaphore version. What happened to my objective marker, by the way? How did I manage to turn it around? And the surprise tree. Well, we will talk about this surprise tree. The scenario insinuates that we will be surprised by a falling tree. The big question is, how did the dispatcher know that there will be a falling tree and set the signal behind it to red? How did the train know that it needs to do an emergency brake? Here is the distance signal, disc, arrow to the bottom. We need to acknowledge it. And now, oh no, a tree, emergency! It breaks, and then the tree falls. And the dispatcher knew all along that he has to set the signal to red. That is suspicious, isn't it? Everybody knew that this tree would be falling. The train, the dispatcher, well, we didn't. And the other suspicious thing, no, you can't see it because the PIS board does not read anymore because it was a save game. In the original, you will have the name Altenstadt here on a service that is supposed to go to Bad Vilbel. And we have to return because we cannot remove the tree in the scenario to Altenstadt. Very suspicious. Yes, when I played it for the first time, I was so concentrated to slowing down to stop signal, I did not see the tree fall. Train stopped itself, yeah. And it starts stopping and then the tree falls. That is very suspicious. But what we can do is have a close look on this distance signal here. It is really a funny contraption, isn't it? Showing the disc, arrow to the bottom, yellow, ascending yellow. This is the VR1. If you see that, you have to acknowledge it with the PZB, Wachsamkeitstaste, and then prepare to stop at the next signal. Yeah, with this impression, I leave you to your conspiracy theories. Who wanted to stop this train here in a safe manner? So that nobody gets hurt, but we can proceed. And I hope you enjoyed the semaphore signals. I'm really happy that they are in the game now, and they are implemented greatly. Look at this. It really looks nice. I saw the other one as well in the game. The other one what? The other signal? Is there another signal as well? Or the other party in our conspiracy theory? Well, as I already announced, next week I will try to make a stream in the same DLC again, running a full timetable mode service, paying a bit more attention. The other signal on this. Alright. Good. Fine. Next week we will talk about the signage and the signaling for the level crossings, because there are actually 3 different progressions that you can have, and they are all in the game. I don't know how it is called. Okay, we will talk about this maybe next time, and then you tell me which signal there was that you saw. It is a great DLC. If you don't have it, buy it. It sounds a bit, well, meek. Secondary line, set back in the 90s, slow trains, but it is great. It is pristine scenery work. Most of it works really well, and yeah, the trains are fun to drive. Also the 365 locomotive. Maybe we run a freight service next time. I just have to figure out. Maybe I find a nice one for that. Thank you very much for joining me tonight. Thank you for moderating my stream, AJ, for banning 1 or 2 promoters. And I hope you enjoyed the stream, and we'll be back next week. Have a nice time and take care.